Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Aiden. I'm going to be going over today a very important and very fun music theory topic, okay, that is very important for intermediate guitar players. Even late beginners can start learning this, and if you're in the advanced zone, this is a really good spot to double check to make sure you understand all this stuff so that way you can adapt and play and shred. So let's do it. If we think to Western harmony, the term Western harmony is basically a general term for what most people call music theory nowadays. Now, Western harmony is not the only kind of music theory. It's not necessarily the most important music theory, but it's definitely the most popular form of music theory right now. So going back to the Renaissance and the Baroque stuff and the classical stuff, they basically kind of laid out the foundation. I mean, music theory has been around even before that, but when you get all those compositions of Bach and Beethoven and Mozart and stuff that got really popularized throughout the world, they were like, okay, these are the rules. Let's learn these rules. So I'm going to show you what those rules look like with one simple scale, 7 different triads, and I'm going to show you how to maximize this really important theory topic. So let's get into it. One of the most popular scales to use in music, and this goes for almost any genre of music, is the harmonic minor scale. Now, obviously, natural minor and natural major and other scales are used all the time. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that one of the most important scales that you should know how to play really, really well is harmonic minor. Now, this video isn't necessarily how to just play the scale, because that would be kind of useless. It's more so how to create, play, and most importantly, understand the triads that happen within that scale. Talking about scales, what we're going to do is we're going to first talk about music theory off the fretboard, then we're going to go on the fretboard later. So we're going to use the key of A minor because I know that that is the easiest scale for minor keys. It has no sharps or flats. Okay, you can obviously move this to all the keys. Just keep in mind the key signature if you are going to do that. So how this works is we have 7 notes in a scale. So an A minor scale would just have A through G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Relatively simple, right? All of those scales can be made into triads by using the root third fifth method. Easiest way to do that is just to skip a letter and then skip another letter. So A up a third would be C, then C up another third would be E, or you can just count A, B, C for the third and then A, B, C, D, E for the fifth. So A, C, E would be my full triad. So when somebody says to play an A minor chord, you're just going to get those 3 notes. Okay, so you're going to do that for every single note in the scale. So the next note would be B, so you'd play B, D, F for that specific chord. So a B chord in that case would be B, D, F. You keep doing these and you have your 7 diatonic your 7 diatonic minor triads, okay, which is great. Now the next thing that we need to figure out is which chords are major, which chords are minor, and then which chords are diminished, and if there's any other stuff that we got to worry about like augmented or anything like that. The nice thing about regular diatonic is 1, 4, 5 will always be the same. So when you're in a major key, 1, 4, 5 will always be major chords. Okay, I'm giving you the easy way to figure this out. So for minor chords, 1, 4, 5 will always be minor. So the 1 chord would be A minor, the 4 chord would be D minor, then the 5 chord would be E minor. Relatively simple. Okay, so if we keep building off of that, the middle ones, 3, 6, and 7 are going to be your major chords, and then the 2 is going to be diminished. If you can get that memorized, that would be really, really awesome, and it'd be really, really helpful for you. The mathematical way of doing it is to simply look at the interval of the root to the third of the chord, and then the third to the fifth. Basically, what that means is if you look at A, C, E for the first minor triad, A to C is 3 frets apart, or a minor third. C to E is 4 frets apart, which is a major third. Think of it like a fraction. Minor third, major third, like a sandwich. Minor third on the bottom, major third on the top, that is a minor triad. But if you flip it and you do the 3 chord, which is C, E, G, okay, that's a major chord. Major third on the bottom, C to E, that's 4 frets apart. And then E to G, which is the minor third, that's 3 frets apart. So it's literally flipped. Okay, some people will tell you that if you just, major chord flatted third is minor. Yes, it is, but for actually understanding it, I recommend doing it this way. Okay, so the 2 chord we said was diminished. All a diminished triad is a minor third stacked on another minor third. I guess you could think of it like a minor triad with a flatted fifth. So as that example, B to D is up 3 frets, And then D to F is up another 3 frets. So the diminished chord is what we call a tension chord. It creates a lot of tension and instability, so that way we can resolve it. Stems from everything that I talk about on this channel with tension and release. That's a really important chord. Now that we have all those diatonic chords laid out, all we need to do is make this bad boy harmonic minor and see what happens. Because remember, when you change the note in a scale, you change all the chords that happen with it. Just one drastic half step of a note in a chord will drastically change the value of it, meaning major, minor, augmented, diminished, whatever. So the harmonic minor scale raises the 7th scale degree by a half step. So the note G is going to become G sharp. Okay, but like I said, whenever you change notes in a scale, you got to change the notes in a chord. So any triad that had a G in it, we're going to make it G sharp. Okay, so if this is getting to be understood, you could see that the 7, instead of G BD, it's now G sharp BD, which creates 2 minor thirds stacked, which makes this chord diminished. You could see that the 5 chord is not E G B anymore, it's E G sharp B. Okay, that now makes it major. Okay, because now we have different intervals of major third, minor third stacked. And then the 3 chord technically becomes augmented, not really used very much, but just something good to know. So it's a major triad with a raised 5th. So major third stacked on another major third. Okay, so if we're starting to understand this, now we have more tension chords. We have the 2, we have the 7, both being diminished, and then we also have the 5, okay? So there's one word that I want you to take away from this. It's the word dominant. The word dominant refers to a major chord on the 5th scale degree. So for major keys, the 5 is already dominant because it's already major. So it already creates a lot of tension. In minor keys, however, it's naturally going to be minor for the 5, so E minor. So it doesn't have a lot of tension to it. So when we look at the key of A minor, the 5 is now E G sharp B, so that's now a dominant chord. So that's what dominant means, and that's a tension chord, okay? So diminished and dominant actually have a very similar effect. Diminished just has a little bit more raunchiness to it, but they both do essentially the same exact thing, which is really, really cool. So if you understand how that stuff works, we're basically going to put this into practice and create tension, and then we're going to resolve that tension with certain chords. All of the chords in between there, like the 3, the 6, and the 7, or I guess not the 7 anymore, but the 3 and the 6, those can be used too. They're called predominant chords that we use before we get to the dominant. Okay, so that's why you hear 1, 4, 5 so many times, or 1, 6, 4, 5. The 1 is always at the beginning, the 5 is always at the end. It's just how things are. But when you understand this tension and release, this kind of classical sort of or neoclassical style, it really opens up the window for you to actually sound really legit and professional, like you know what you're doing, instead of just mindlessly running through scales. Okay, so let's hop on the guitar and take a look. All right, so now that I've got my guitar, this is a 7 string, by the way, so you can ignore the 7 string. I'm not going to use it. All we're going to do is we're going to take a look at harmonic minor, then we're going to take a look at the simple triads, especially the tension ones, and then the resolving A minor triad, okay? And we're going to kind of put some of these things of theory together. So like I said in the earlier part, we talked about how the harmonic minor scale is just a minor scale with a raised 7. So this is what the natural minor scale looks like with 3 notes per string. And this is what harmonic minor looks like and sounds like with 3 notes per string. So you could see that the harmonic minor scale has a much darker sort of creepy tone, or whatever you want to call it, okay? That's kind of the whole point, is when you get to that note, the G sharp, even just the single note, we want to hear it go but 2. We want to hear a nice resolution. That's how a lot of scales work, is whenever we get to those tension notes, okay, typically it's the 7, we want to hear resolution. And a lot of the notes or the chords that have that raised 7th, they create tension, right? So when I hear this, and I also hear the 7, or I'm sorry, the dominant 7, it has the same effect to want to be resolved. The same thing goes for diminish. It's all about understanding how this tension and release stuff works. And you can see that when you start shredding with it, it's going to make a lot of sense, okay? So for this example, we're going to be taking something that we've talked about in this channel at this point a couple of times, about the 3 natural minor triad shapes that I've kind of pioneered. I did not come up with this or anything. It's just my easy way of presenting triads to my students, okay? So pretty much I call one of them the stairway shape, I call another one the D minor shape, and then the backward staircase shape, okay? What I want you to do is I want you to go into the link in the description and go learn those shapes on that video. It's going to be a lot worth your time, so you can pause this and then come back here, and then we're going to put it all together, okay? So for this particular case, we're just going to stick with the stairway shape on 7555 or ACEA, okay? And we're simply going to look at nearby triads instead of trying to look at all these shapes across the fretboard for right now. It'll make a lot of sense in a moment. So one of the coolest things about the guitar is wherever you do a tension chord, there's a release chord in the area, okay? This is one thing that I loved exploring with on the fretboard when I was younger. So one thing that I noticed is that when I play my tonic A minor chord, there's a dominant right next to it, okay? It's actually the shape of D major, just up 2 frets. So right here to right here. The same thing works for diminish, okay? Now, one thing you might notice about diminish is that the 2 and the 7 have a very similar sound. Well, they're technically the exact same notes-ish, okay? If you lay it out like B, D, F versus G sharp, B, D, essentially, if you want to make them fully diminished 7 chords, you'd have B, D, F, and then A, okay, for half diminished, or you could just make it G sharp or A flat for fully diminished. That's what I like to do. So I'll use that as an example. And then for the 7, it would be G sharp, B, D, and F. So it's literally the same exact chord. So literally the same thing. So you can start those in any spot, up 3 frets or back 3 frets. I'll show you what I mean right here. So the diminished triad basically works like this. There we go. Okay. So the root of the chord actually doesn't technically matter as long as it has either a B, D, and F or an A flat. As long as you have this shape, it's going to be the correct notes, okay? So what I like to do is when I'm at my tonic, my dominant, and my diminish, it's all in the same spot. And that was all just using one spot. If you'd put that in with maybe the blues scale, sounds pretty cool, right? And that was just one little spot, okay? The 5 chord is a major chord, so that means the 6 chord is just up a fret, so that'd be F major. Okay, so the only one that we're missing technically is C major. So let's take a look at where we can do C major. In my opinion, one of the easiest spots to do C major would probably just be this. Right there. Okay, that might be one of the best ways that you can do it. You can also do it like that. So if that's understood and you can already sweep pick like that, you're already in a really nice spot, okay? If you can only do those with individual triad notes, you're in a really good spot because we're understanding how these things work, okay? So from there, all you really have to do is understand how everything moves further across the fretboard with the stairway, D minor, and backward staircase shape. And then you can also figure when you start to understand this stuff, everything just kind of writes itself. The 6 chord, for example. Okay, maybe going to the diminish. Right, just like that. So you can kind of understand that when you go through this stuff, you understand how everything works across the fretboard, okay? Another quick tip for you is if you want a really good in-depth video on diminish, click the link below. You know the drill. I have a massive diminish masterclass. It's really going to help you out. Shows you everything about diminish and how easy it is. Now, one quick note of this. Where did I come up with all these chord shapes? Well, they have to do with a couple things. Either you can think of the open chord or you can just simply think of the bar chord, okay? Because technically speaking, a lot of these shapes are either open chords or bar chords just in the same area. But when you understand the 3 shapes and you understand the 3 dominant shapes, you know basically how to move them to any diatonic or non-diatonic spot. You've got every single diatonic or non-diatonic triad across the entire fretboard. Okay, so just to kind of recap, we've learned the harmonic minor scale, we've learned the triads, how they work, and now we've applied them to the guitar and understood how to use them. Some quick tips for you when you are practicing this is just noodle with tonic and dominant, and that's it. Make sure you have these down really, really well. Okay, then you can start adding the other chords like the 6, maybe the 4. Right, I forgot to mention the 4, but it's actually right here. Okay, so these are all really awesome things that you can do with this. Okay, so get tonic down, get dominant down, get diminished down, and then you can start adding all of those other extra sub-dominant or predominant chords in there. Okay, so if you have any questions about any of this, I would love to hear some, so leave a comment below. If you want to work with me on any of this stuff, if you feel like you really need help with this stuff, I have really awesome things that are laid out in a much more easy to digest and understood way, so that way you can just kind of knock it out really quick in my masterclass. Everything is in there. Pretty much everything that you'd ever need on guitar is in there. Actually, I work on it all the time. So if you want to connect, go ahead and hit the link below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.